Good evening and welcome to the CUNY Academy for part 2 of Illinois Constitution. All right, this is filmed during the lockdown, so if you hear any announcements coming up, that's just the lockdown ending, hopefully. Okay, so we just got done talking about the Illinois executive branch, all right, which frankly is most important because that's what you're voting for, you're seeing on TV, statewide elections, and so on. As far as the legislative branch goes, okay, not too much to it, okay. You'll see the Illinois House and Senate is bicameral legislature, just like we have with the U.S. House and U.S. Senate, okay. But you'll notice that the requirements to be in it are much younger, okay. Part of that is obviously we want more people involved in state government, and it's in a lot of ways a training ground for getting people into the U.S. Legislature, okay. You have to live there 2 years, not really critical to know, but that's what it takes to be elected. And as long as you're a citizen at the time of the election, you're good. So it's much tougher to be in the U.S. government. They have tougher citizenship requirements, plus this is in the Constitution, okay? And remember, our last Illinois Constitutional Convention was in 1970, okay? So it is actually older than me, believe it or not, but not much. So they were obviously able to modify that a little bit more, and it was easier to make those changes to kind of reflect the immigrants and more new requirements for citizenship and things. All right, now what is critical is the term of office, okay? In the Illinois House, it is 2 years, okay, just like it is in the U.S. Constitution. So it's the same, that is the same concept. It wants to be close to the people, keep you connected, require you to go before the voters every 2 years and ask for your job back, okay? There are 118 members in the Illinois House, okay? So essentially that makes it more representative. It's larger than the U.S., which we know is 435. Or I'm sorry, it's larger than the Senate, just like the U.S. concept, okay? Now, what is different is the Illinois Senate is 59 members, okay? If you know your math and look at 59 versus 118, that's half, okay? So essentially what they do in the General Assembly is they set up what are called legislative districts. Okay, I'm going to write this up on the top here, okay? And then there are 59 of those legislative districts. Each of those get one senator, okay? And then that senator either has a 4, 2, or 4-year term, okay? They're staggered. Now, if you add these two numbers up, they equal 10, okay? Why is that? That is because of the census, all right? We know every 10 years they conduct a census and a population count, so they have to redraw the lines every 10 years, and since there's so many members and so many districts with the redrawing of the lines, they make everybody rerun for election in 2012, which is when the census goes public, okay? So 2012 and then 2022, think how far off that is. You'll all be voting by then. We will have every single senator up for election and every single House member, okay? But then they categorize them into different groups, all right? One group will be on a 4-2-4 cycle. So if you're a senator, you're elected in 2012, you'll then run in 2016, okay? And then 2018, because you have the 2 years, and then again in 22, you run for your new cycle, okay? And Dan Duffy is on that cycle. He's your state senator for most of you, okay? Others are placed into a 2-2-4 category. So you'll be elected in 2012, then you got to go in 2014, so you only had a 2-year term for your Senate, then 2020, okay, and then actually this should be a 4. So you're elected in 2014, then 2018, and then 2022 again, okay, and then the third classification goes 4, 4, 2. Okay, so look at a 4-year term, another 4-year term should they win, and then just a 2-year term. So the bottom line is it always adds up to 10, but it's staggered. So that's why you might not be surprised when you see Illinois Senate races every 2 years. You're like, oh, I thought they had 4-year terms. No, they're either 2 or 4 years. Okay, so in these legislative districts with the one senator, they also get 2 representatives, but the representative only represents half of that. Okay, so if hypothetically this is our legislative district, okay, we're going to have one senator, and we're going to split it in half. It has to be equal population, and there'll be a representative on this side and a representative on this side of that district. Okay, so that's how they set that up. So most of you are in the 26th Senate district, and then your representative district is 51, with 52 being over here. All right, so hopefully that makes a lot of sense to you. And we have a Speaker of the House in Illinois, that's Mr. Mike Madigan, whose daughter is the Attorney General, and then we have a President of the Senate, which is John Cullerton. They're both Democrats, but not particularly fond of each other. All right, so there's your Illinois legislative branch. All right, in the judicial branch, okay, key to know, this is kind of your federalism component. There are 3 tiers of courts. They deal with state issues, all right? parking tickets, robberies, murders, unfortunately, drunk driving, anything that's a state crime is handled there, okay? And it is a three-tier system just like in the U.S., okay? So on the U.S. side, even though we have a Supreme Court, Illinois has a Supreme Court, okay? At the U.S. level, it is very cleverly called the Court of Appeals, okay? And all they do is hear court cases on appeal from lower courts, okay? In Illinois, it's called an appellate court. Same concept. You hear cases brought from the lower court, okay? And then you just rule on the law as opposed to the facts of the case, okay? And then your trial courts are called circuit courts. You'll notice there's the one over by Route 83 behind Citgo over there, or whatever it is, Shell, whatever gas station that is. And that's where most of your local village and state-related things take place. At the U.S. level, they're called district courts, and your closest district court to here is in Chicago. Okay, maybe one in Waukegan, actually. So district court is where only trials happen. They have original jurisdiction. The case is originally heard there, and then if you lose, you try your case on appeal. All right, that way this is for state issues, and then federal issues are over here. Okay, and then in the appellate court, if you lose, you can go up to the U.S. Supreme Court or go up to the Supreme Courts that way. Now, if you lose in the U.S. or Illinois Supreme Court, you can then appeal your case to the U.S. Supreme Court that way. Okay, so cases get to the Supreme Court from a court of appeals here, and they come from state Supreme Courts that way. Okay, the only way a case gets to the U.S. Supreme Court is from the appellate court in that direction. All right, moving along. Okay. Illinois Supreme Court has 7 justices, okay, where, you know, in the U.S. they have 9, all right, and they are elected by the voters, okay, and the voters elect them for 10-year terms, okay. So when you get elected, you got to get elected, I believe, by 60% of the vote to get in, and then you are elected to the court, and you serve for 10 years. After those 10 years, you run for retention, meaning on the ballot it is simply a yes or no question. And same deal. If 60% of the voters say yes, you keep your job. If they say no, you lose your job, and then they have a new election for your spot. So it's kind of like a life term, but you do have to go to the voters every 10 years and say, did I do a good job? Which really translates into, did I keep my name out of the newspapers and make you not hate me? Okay? Now, of the 7 justices, there are 5 districts. Okay? One district has 3 justices, and then the other districts have 1 each. Okay, so 2 through 5 are going to have 1 each. So we can probably guess which one's going to have 3 of it. It would be, hold on one second. All right, lockdown's over. All right, so Chicago would have the 3, and then the rest of the state gets 1 for each of the other districts. Okay. Actually, it's 4 districts, not 5. Sorry, I hope you're still listening. We're distracted by the lockdown, okay? So 4 districts. First one gets 3, and the other one get 1 each. All right? I might be wrong on the math there. Okay, there's an appellate court, 5 different districts. This isn't so much to worry about. There's 3 justices will hear a case in an appellate court, and then 2 votes are necessary for that person to win on appeal and either have their case overturned or upheld. They're elected by the voters, and they also serve a 10-year term. And our circuit courts, okay, again, don't need to get into really the minutia of this, but it's the trial courts. There's 21 of those. There's felony courts, misdemeanor courts, small claims, family, juvenile, which hopefully you stay out of, and then any other courts that the General Assembly decides to create. These judges are elected by the voters for 6-year terms. And again, after the 6 years, you run for retention. It becomes a yes-no thing, okay? Yes, no, and I believe it's 70%. I think I said 60% earlier. I think it's 60% when you're running against somebody else, okay, and then it's 70% when they vote yes or no on that. I'll have to double check the Illinois Constitution. It's much more wordy than our U.S. Constitution. And then we have associate judges, which are probably the ones you would see in a court because they do the traffic stuff and the really minor cases, and they serve just 4-year terms. All right, so thank you for listening to the CUNY Academy. All right, hopefully you enjoy this, and we'll take any questions in class tomorrow before we head to the Constitution test on Thursday. All right, remember, we're building responsible voters 1 video at a time.